you can use the chat button at the bottom of the screen and share what part of the world you are inhabiting today. Fabulous. Okay. America, Ireland, Canada. It's fabulous. Miami, this is terrific, everyone. I don't know why I singled out Miami as its own country just now, but I understand it's part of America. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes, giving everyone a chance to be here for a very special session with one of our favorite people, Hope Edelman, who, if you don't know her yet, you're in for a treat. What are you guys doing this weekend? If you want to share something exciting that's coming up for you, let us know in the chat. Maybe there's something you're looking forward to. Perhaps it's one of the incredible events that are being offered through this terrific partnership around Motherless Mother's Day, which is not just for those without mothers, but to really celebrate all mothers. And we all have had one. It's fabulous. It's so nice to see you guys today. Nevada, Portland, Oakland. Hi, Jan. Hi, Wendy. All right, are we ready to start? I think so. Making sure that everyone is here and accounted for, and I see so many wonderful faces. So let's do it. So welcome, of course, to your Friday dose of togetherness. My name is Brad Wolf, and I'm the founder and executive director of Reimagine. We create, as you are about to experience, sessions, events, programs that help change the way we relate to serious illness, death, dying, and grief, but also with a real strong intention around how can we live more fully all the way through our lives? How do we celebrate the people that matter most to us now? And so with that, I just want to say thank you so much to Elisa Furnett, who has been working with Reimagine to organize what is being called as Motherless Mother's Day, a series of over 30 events that are taking place throughout this weekend that are being hosted through our site with Elisa, who I see is now joined the call. Maybe we'll hear from her for 1 second later, because it's so special to have her with us. She's been doing so much hard work to help us put together these programs and really spearhead the entire initiative and bring Hope Edelman to us today, which is fantastic. On this also, the first weekend of the Reimagine Life, Loss, and Love Worldwide Festival. This is the official opening starting tomorrow night with our virtual vigil with Jack Hornfield. But today's session with you, this is really what I'm most excited about, to be here in this moment. And let's get started. So, just want to say a big thank you to the folks. There have been some supporters of ours that have made this possible. And so thank you so much to all these incredible organizations. And we'll be sharing more about them throughout this festival coming up over the next 2 months that have really supported us as a nonprofit organization. And really it's you on this call that have been also crucial supporters of our work. So if you are new to us and to Zoom, this is our colleague Dara, who is sharing with you some tips for Zoom. Namely, that you're going to be sharing comments and questions using the chat button. Most of you have figured that out and are sharing where you're calling in from right now. If you get too inundated by the chat, you can close that button on the top right so you don't see the stream of words from the participants. If you have a question for us at Reimagine, especially a technical question, you're struggling, please write us on that chat. You can select our name, Reimagine, below, or you can write us an email at hello@letsreimagine.org. Please keep your cameras on if possible, because it's so nice to see your smiling faces. But if you want to keep them off, that is, of course, your choice. Now, your microphones, please keep those on in the breakout rooms only. You'll have to turn it on, actually, because right now you're all muted, but we're going to want to hear from you as we get into small groups later in this session. Fabulous. So with that in mind, let's get going and start off, as we always do in these dose of togethernesses, I don't know if that's even a word, with Teresa Young, who is a colleague of ours who has been leading these incredible meditations with us. And Teresa, thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to being centered with you.
Thank you, Brad. And as always, big thanks to the entire Reimagine team and especially this Reimagine community. So looking forward to sharing a little journey and exercise with you all today that I found to be really useful in navigating sometimes sticky emotions, different types of emotions, and kind of this 3-step process that I go through. So hopefully that'll cue us up to Hope's conversation around, reframing our experiences. So as always, go ahead and find yourself in whatever comfortable position that is for you. That's on a seat or a cushion. Also just invite people, you can even lay down if you'd like, whatever's going to feel best for you on this Friday morning. And you can place your hands down. Either they can be palms down, which kind of creates a nice grounding energy, or you can have them palms face up, which is nice and receiving. And if you're comfortable with it, you can slowly start to maybe lower the eyes down and just start to feel the body, the mind settle. Really allow yourself to fully arrive. Sometimes it even helps to go through this little visualization where you can visualize yourself coming into your space. So maybe going through that morning routine, waking up, breakfast, coffee, emails, and finally finding yourself to this place, sitting down to your computer, opening up that computer, dialing into Zoom, all the things it took you to get to this moment. And now seeing yourself settling in and maybe taking this big breath in and just sighing it out. Starting to bring your awareness to this breath, feeling the air coming in through the nose and the air exhaling out of the nose. Maybe even refining your attention to the subtleties of this breath. How when it comes in, it's the temperature that it comes in at. And when it leaves, maybe it's even slightly warmer. As you inhale, you can feel the lungs expand, the chest expands. And as you exhale, feeling the shoulders drop down, this relaxation in the jaw. Letting go of any place you need to be or go, the things you need to do. Taking this moment to really give yourself permission to be. Allowing your nervous system to really settle. And with each breath you take, just noticing that feeling of grounding arriving each time. Now we let go of that awareness of our breath and maybe bring it to the sounds around you. Noticing any sounds, maybe listening to the sounds of these words. Maybe even hearing the spaces in between them. Thoughts may come, and you can just allow them to come. And then bring your awareness back to the silence in between them. And then maybe you become aware of your thoughts again. And again, become aware of the silence. You start to listen not just with your ears, but you almost open up that inner ear, that spaciousness in between your ears. You start to listen with your entire awareness. And this time, maybe instead of striving to move away from the thoughts, we're going to start to bring our awareness in. We're going to settle onto our thoughts, which may be very different than typical meditation techniques where we try and turn away from them. Perhaps starting to settle into a thought that might be persisting or has been uncomfortable, maybe something that we've been resisting or suppressing. You don't have to choose something that's incredibly difficult. Maybe just start with something light. You can trace a sense of tightness or closing or grippy stickiness underneath that thought. And just start to identify how it makes you feel. You can scan your body with this whole awareness, this relaxed awareness of where that thought might arrive or be located in the body. Just allow yourself to maybe soften around that body, but keeping this receptive sensing awareness. And now you can ask yourself, is this true? You can ask yourself, do I want to feel this? Is this how I want to experience the current moment? And just give yourself the time to really feel into that question and allow an organic answer to arise. And ask yourself this. You can allow your tongue to relax the jaw, the lips, the brow. Asking again, do I want to feel this way? Feeling where it is in your body, your stomach, your shoulders, your chest. Do I want to feel this way? And then allowing whatever place in your body you feel those sensations to fill that area with awareness so you can really feel it from the inside out. And usually when we're working with a thought or sensation that is uncomfortable, the organic answer that arises is no. Is that maybe there's a different way that you want to be currently feeling. And so just allowing that to arise. And perhaps slowly, as we come to a realization that there may be a choice in the way that we're experiencing reality, a choice in how we're experiencing our bodies, an alternate possibility, we start to feel the sensation soften. We just come to observe it. Instead of it being a part of our story, we just come to observe it as something that's there, having a little bit more distance from it. And then perhaps we feel it dissolve. Maybe there's a releasing. And as that emotion starts to feel a little less heavy, a little less grippy or sticky, we start to feel like we can breathe a little bit more spaciousness into it. We ask the question, how would I like to feel instead? And staying a moment with this new question, giving space and time to truly allow an organic answer to arise. How would I like to feel instead? Maybe light, joyful, present, content. Whatever that is, allow your mind to settle on that feeling, inviting that into the body. Where is it that that starts to come in? Is it through the feet? Maybe through the palms? Through a softening in the eyes? And as we expand our awareness to that new experience, just allowing it to spread through the body, maybe expanding from the belly to the heart, down the back of the spine. Just now keeping awareness of this feeling and allowing it to stay with you. Keeping this feeling as we begin to open our senses up again to the sounds around you. Keeping this feeling here as we allow some additional thoughts to come in. Keeping that feeling in your body as we start to bring our awareness back to our breath. And taking a moment to just note any shifts that happened in those 8 minutes. Keeping this feeling in the body as we start to maybe even open our eyes, relax the jaw. Taking a moment to now exist here with this feeling and all of the external senses streaming in. And just grounding into the knowing that our emotions are sometimes our greatest tools and allies. These places of much transformation and growth, and that when we allow the magic of breath and stillness and mindfulness to come into partnership with our emotions, that so much can change and transform into experiencing reality a way that we choose to experience it. So thank you so much for going on that journey with me. As always, it's such a wonderful opportunity to be here with you all.
Thank you, Teresa, and I love Hope's response to that. I like this heart shape that you made. That was nice. If you have gratitude to share with Teresa, please drop it in the chat, please, because she's so grounding for us and so inspiring. So thank you again. And it sets us up perfectly for this conversation that we're about to have. And I'm so excited about it to have Hope Edelman here. Today's theme is every ending is also a beginning, reframing your story of loss. And Hope is the author, as you hopefully know, of best-selling books, Motherless Daughters. There it is. That's perfect. That book is such a beautiful piece of literature and so helpful. She's also been writing and speaking about the long-term effects of mother loss for more than 25 years and is really the pioneer in talking about this topic. And just on a quick aside, at Reimagine, our first colleague, or my first colleague here, Alana, when she joined the team, she lost both of her parents. And the thing, when we were first doing programming, she's like, there's one person that I really need to have participate in Reimagine, and it was Hope. And so when Hope, we gave a talk in New York, she asked to use any extra funding we had to help get her to New York to see Hope. And it was just a big game changer for her life. And then I've had now the opportunity to meet Hope as well. And she's just as fantastic as Alana alluded to. So we're so grateful. And with that in mind, take it away, Hope.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you, Dara and Teresa. Thank you for that beautiful meditation. That was really, really lovely. This is the symbol that we use in my online support groups. I lead them with Claire Bidwell-Smith on Fridays for all motherless daughters. And so we just give each other hearts when we want to, have a little burst of love for someone who's speaking, or at the very end for each other. So I'm thrilled to be here today to talk with all of you. What Reimagine and Elisa are putting on this weekend for motherless daughters is exceptional. And there are terrific events. If you haven't looked at the whole lineup, I really encourage you to do that. And I'll be on another panel on Sunday about parenting. So if you are a motherless mother, that might be something that you'd like to participate in too. But today I'm here to talk with you about how the ending of every story is the beginning of a new one. And it's the same way that when you're reading a book, the end of a chapter leads into the start of another chapter. I come to this work from nonfiction writing. I have a master's in nonfiction from the University of Iowa, where I learned how to shape stories. And so narrative structure comes into everything that I do. And I'm working on a new book now. My deadline is May 30th. So as soon as I get off here, I'm gonna go work on a chapter, but it's called The After Grief. And it's about the long arc of grief and how bereavement services tend to drop off at the 2-year point, but the experience goes on for the rest of our lives. And it looks at how will this loss show up for us in 20 or 30 years? Because it's now 39 years since my mom died. 1981, I was 17 years old when she died of breast cancer after about a 1.5-year struggle with the disease. And Motherless Daughters was first published in 1994, and then there's 2 new editions, and the one that's out now is the 20th anniversary edition. But also I teach nonfiction writing, and I help people tell their stories of loss, which I've been doing for 25 years. And through that work and from working on my new book, I've come to really get an appreciation for that we really have 2 different stories of loss. One is the story of the loss, which is typically the story of how someone we love died. And it begins with maybe some backstory, and then if she was or he was sick, there's a diagnosis, and then there's, you know, the fight to survive, and the story ends with the death. I'm sorry, I have 2 cats that are running in the background, so you might hear them. They're doing their little, you know, Indy 500 thing up and down the stairs. And then there's also your story of loss, which is the story of how the facts of the matter caused you to change and grow over time. And that story is the one that develops over the longer arc. I have been really influenced by the work of social psychologist John Harvey, who studies how people shape their stories of loss, and also a psychologist by the name of Dan McAdams, who studies how people craft their own life stories that they carry forward and, you know, depend on for their own identities. But John Harvey talks about how we start crafting a story of loss right after somebody dies, or if someone had a long illness, maybe during that struggle, you know, to survive. And I remember doing this when my mom died. I remember being 17 years old and trying to piece together the story of what happened. Because like some of you on this call, maybe, my mom died as a result of a long-term illness and a sudden loss to the family members, because the kids did not know she was dying, and either did she. So we all thought she was getting better. And then my dad and the doctor knew, but this was 1981. It was still a time when people didn't always tell women that they were sick. I mean, we weren't even saying breast cancer, because no one would say breast in public, which is kind of unimaginable now, but that was 1981. So the kids in the family experienced this like a sudden loss. We only had about 3 days to get used to the idea that she was going to die after a 1.5 years of thinking that she was getting treatment that would make her better. So I had to compute, you know, this new story that I suddenly found myself living in, with the narrative that I thought I'd been living in for a 1.5 years. And it was a bumpy process. And I was doing it like as she was dying and during the funeral and after the funeral. But that's what John Harvey calls the story development phase, which is when we run through all the facts and memories in our mind to create a narrative that feels emotionally and intellectually complete. And I had a lot of trouble doing that, because I had all this new data that I had to plug into my existing story and figure out what the heck had just happened. If you lost your mom very suddenly, you might have had the same experience, because there isn't a whole story arc that you can follow. There's this one discrete event that may feel like it just bifurcated your life into a before and an after. That's really common. I hear that a lot from the women who come to my retreats or who I work with one-on-one as a coach. But typically what happens is we start piecing a story together, and then we go out and we test it. You know, we try it out either in our minds or on other people. We imagine how people might respond. You sort of like testing out different versions of the story. I had a pen pal when I was 17 who lived in Minnesota. And so I remember trying to tell her the story of what happened and writing draft after draft and crumpling it up and throwing it in the corner because I couldn't get it right. And so that was my testing part. And then the third phase of developing our story is what he calls confiding, which means that it's really important to share that story with a compassionate other. And this is where a lot of us probably got stuck if no one would talk to us about our mom dying. We may not have had anyone to confide in at first. It may have taken a while before we had a therapist or a partner or a really close friend who would listen with curiosity and compassion rather than trying to give us pity or convince us that everything, you know, is okay now, which is not always what we're looking for. So there's the arc that culminates in the death, right? That's the story of loss. It's very, very factual. My story, or the story of my loss, the story of my mother's death, began when a gynecologist found a lump in her breast and told her it was a cyst, don't worry about it. And then a year later, an allergist said, you've got swollen lymph nodes, you should get them checked out. And by the time she got a mammogram and a biopsy, the cancer had already spread pretty extensively in her body, and she lived another year and a half. Okay, those are the facts. My mom died in 1981 of breast cancer that spread when she was 42 years old, and I was 17. I can't change those facts. I wish I could, but I can't. What changes over time, though, is my relationship to those facts and the way that I perceive them. Because when I was 17, my mom dying at 42 was like, she's old. Right? She's gone to college, she's gotten married, she's had kids, 42, you know, she's near the end of her life. That's how I thought at 17, because I was 17, right? And then when I became a mother myself in my early 30s, I looked at those facts really differently. And I was really sad for my mom not getting to see her children grow up, because now I understood how a mother loved a child. And then my relationship to those facts changed again when I turned 42. The age at which she died, because suddenly it wasn't that old anymore, right? I mean, at 42, I still felt pretty young. And now I'm 13 years older than my mom got to be. And those facts look really different. She looks so young. She's not the older, wiser figure in my life. She's not my peer. She's younger than me now. She's younger than my younger sister. She's younger than my younger brother, who's 7 years younger than me. And so my perspective has shifted a lot. And I see that as a form of reparative work when we allow our stories to change and grow like that. And that's the work that I do in my writing workshops, at the retreats, in one-on-one coaching, and in my next book. It's a big part of my next book, which is how we revisit and revise our stories. Because that's how we begin to see how the end of one story can be the beginning of another story arc, right? Our life is filled with what I call micro-narratives. So the story of my mother dying is a micro narrative. I mean, it's a pretty important one. It's a long and big chapter in the book of my life that I'm still writing, but it's just one chapter. Maybe it bleeds over into others, or I have flashbacks, of course, in later chapters to something that happened in that chapter. But that chapter eventually gave way to another chapter. And what happens, and we can only see this in time. So if your mom died really recently and you're not feeling this yet, you are exactly where you should be. Because I'm talking about, like, you're not going to really be in this place for years or even decades when you look back over the long arc of your story. But I see that how my mother's death set into motion a chain of events that led to other things in my life, some of which I'm really grateful for. And I'll give you an example. My mom died when I was 17. And that meant that I went off to college as far away as I could because I wanted to get out of my family situation. So I chose the college that was furthest from home that accepted me, which was in Chicago. So I went to journalism school at Northwestern. And through journalism school, I started writing essays. And then I went to graduate school at the University of Iowa for nonfiction. And while I was there, I wrote a book proposal because I couldn't find a book about early mother loss. And I wrote the book Motherless Daughters. I moved back to New York after graduate school to write this book. And while I was there, the book came out, and I started a nonprofit organization to help women form support groups. This was back in the mid-90s. And we needed office space, and a friend knew some guys who had a portion of their office that they wanted to sublease. And I went and I met them, and we rented office space from them. And one of them started taking a cab back from work with me every night. And eventually we started dating, and then eventually we got married, and then we had 2 daughters. And my daughters, who are the center of my world and the best thing I've ever done, exist today because I can trace it back to my mom dying in 1981. And so that's how I see how the story of my mom dying, which was really an ending to her life, right? And an ending to our relationship in the physical world, because we still have a relationship in, you know, my inner world and in memory. But the ending of that story, the story of her life, opened up the next chapter, which led to the next chapter, which led to the next chapter. And my 18-year-old just walked around the corner. She's going to college in the fall. I've gotten to see 2 kids finish high school. Well, she'll finish in a couple weeks. I've gotten to see 1 child finish college, which my mom never got to do. She didn't get to see any of her kids graduate from high school. So that's really meaningful in our family that she got to do that. And, you know, I encourage you to revisit and revise your story in a similar way, because the ending of that chapter in your life may have also led to a whole new relationship with your mom, especially if you had a really difficult relationship with your mom, because a lot of women do. And then if you revisit and reprocess and, you know, develop a different inner relationship with her, if you choose to, that can be the beginning of a whole new story. So this is the kind of work we do at the retreats also, and the kind of work that I do in my online courses. And we talk about this in our support groups. We just talked about this, in fact, the way that our relationship to the facts changes over time. Just talked about it this morning in a support group that Claire Bidwell-Smith and I lead for Motherless Daughters on Fridays. So there's a lot of overlap, but this is a central theme in my work because I have found it to be enormously healing and enormously gratifying to be able to allow my story to be something that changes and grows, because a story of loss really is, I think, a remarkably fungible construct. It's something that changes and grows over time as we do. And when we allow it to grow with us, we have really no idea where it's going to lead. Sometimes it leads us into really surprising and wonderful and magical places. And that's my wish for you as well. I think I've filled my time. Dara, how am I doing? Are we good? We're good. Okay. It's so good to see all of you. And I wish you a beautiful and peaceful Mother's Day weekend in whatever way is most meaningful to you and the memory of your mom. I'm going to be doing a call later this afternoon about how to honor our moms on Mother's Day. And again, the panel on Sunday, and lots of reimagined stuff that Elisa has put together for you. It's really an extraordinary weekend that Reimagine and Elisa have planned together. So thank you again, Dara and Brad and Teresa and Elisa, and hugs to all of you. Yes, for being here today and being part of this. And I hope you have great conversations in your breakout rooms.
Thank you, Hope. That was so beautiful, and so just such a beautiful way, even if, like myself, who I have not lost my mother, which I'm so grateful for, the stories that you share about how to think about life and how to turn something hard and think about it in terms of what beauty can be created out of hard things. I mean, that's really the foundation of everything we believe in here.
When we talk about death, we're also talking about life. We can't forget that.
Exactly. So that is so great, and I'm excited to share with everyone what we're going to be talking about in our togetherness circles right now. And so yes, we're about to move into breakout rooms with your digital neighbors from across the globe to experience a sense of connection and gratitude. The way these togetherness circles work, for those of you who are new, and just a refresher for those of you, many of you who have been such consistently amazing people showing up to the space, there's going to be a moderator selected to keep the time flow, and it's whoever is wearing the brightest shirt today. And if you don't want to be the moderator, you can pass. Active listening, please just answer the entire set of questions, each person at a time. And then the moderator, please then make sure the conversation flows by calling on the next person and the next person, etc. We're going to be using a group chat that you'll see broadcast messages sent to your screen to cue you, both for what questions we're answering and also when to return to the main session. And at that point, if you'd like to exchange contact information with someone in the group, you can use your chat to send a private message to that person. And of course, there's no pressure to do any of these things. You can always exit the main room where I'll be stationed today, hanging out. And if you have a question, you can email hello@letsreimagine.org. Now, always keep the conversations confidential. This is a safe space to share your story without unsolicited advice or judgments. You, as I said, always have the right to pass. And please keep your responses to about 3 minutes to make space for others to share. So what are the questions we're going to address today? Always first, when you start out, please share your name and location just so we have a sense of where you're calling in from and who you are. And then the question that Hope's developed here is, what micro narratives, what many instances can you identify in your own story where an ending of one story also serves as the beginning to another? It's such a beautiful question, and it really gets you to think about that continuation that Hope was talking about, where we think of things as endings, but sometimes they're also, and many times in fact, they're beginnings that shape us. And so let's try to reflect on a micro narrative where you can identify that. Then, what's one thing that you're feeling grateful for today? Let's leave that on a real high note and bring it to the present with something you're feeling grateful for right now. So with that in mind, we're going to hit a magic button and you're going to